When Michael Bloomberg announced that he was running for president, Bloomberg News said it wouldn't investigate the man who signs staffers' paychecks, but would still aggressively cover the race. That left a lot of questions about how Bloomberg News would cover its owner. But with Bloomberg's rise in the polls, we are beginning to find out. When Mike Bloomberg jumped in, Bloomberg News issued a much criticized decree to the newsroom, no investigating the owner, nor any of his Democratic opponents.
The Bloomberg newsroom will investigate President Trump, but not the men and women running to take him out of office.
Either way, many Bloomberg journalists apparently hoped the boss's star would fade.
One reporter there told me that the Bloomberg campaign is everybody's nightmare.
But that nightmare has crystallized with Bloomberg's rise in the polls and the tough scrutiny that comes with it. In recent days, he's found himself apologizing for an old stop-and-frisk policy that disproportionately affected young Black and Latino men.
I was wrong, and I'm sorry.
Then this booklet made by a one-time employee resurfaced, containing nasty and crude comments Bloomberg allegedly made about women.
In it, Bloomberg is quoted as saying, if women wanted to be appreciated for their brains, they'd go to the library instead of to Bloomingdale's.
And that was the tame stuff. But fast forward to Bloomberg's first major test in Wednesday's NBC debate.
The one thing that I'm really worried about, embarrassed about, was how it turned out with stop and frisk.
Responses like that on questions he should have expected earned Bloomberg negative reviews, including from Bloomberg News, noting a wide gap between the smooth, confident candidate portrayed in those ads and the less sure-footed and at times irritable candidate on the debate stage. Tough stuff, and from here on, it's unlikely to get any easier for Bloomberg or Bloomberg News. So I guess the good news, if you're a Bloomberg News staffer, is that he may be making this problem go away as we speak because he was so bad in that debate. But I felt, going back to that initial memo that got a lot of people talking about this, to say that they're not going to investigate Bloomberg, the editor of Bloomberg News, John Micklethwaite, later came out and said, our crack investigations team isn't going to investigate him, but we will still cover him appropriately. There was a ton of gray nebulosity there. Staffers wanted him to offer some clarification, and he refused to do it. The stop and frisk thing is a perfect example. You don't need to sort of dig deeply to find out that occurred, but do you report on it in depth? Do you just sort of refer to it in passing? My sense is that Bloomberg has sort of taken the latter tack. Callie, is there any way for Bloomberg News to get out of this conundrum they're in?
I don't see how. I mean, the best thing they did was just be honest about his performance. But that's not an investigation. When we talk about investigation, we're talking about a deep dive into the wholeness of the candidate and present that. And everybody else is, to some large degree, had that happen to them. And it's his turn now. And his paper would have to step up if they really are doing the journalistic job they're hired to do. So we'll see.
I think this is a mess, and it continues to be a mess. As Callie says, they're going to do straight coverage of the debate. I don't think that that's the sort of thing that we really have to be concerned about. But they're not going to, they have said they're not going to initiate any deep enterprise pieces of either Bloomberg or the other Democratic candidates. But, we will do it to President Trump and his administration. It's a ridiculous stance. One of the very few times I've been sympathetic to the president is when they ordered a Bloomberg reporter off the plane. Why should they even put up with it? I mean, this is completely untenable.
And let me just follow up and say, at the debate, remember he said this was the NDAs were a two-party agreement. Those women didn't want to talk. Now the women have come out and said, oh yeah, we'd like to talk. That's something that a normal paper would follow up on.
Yeah, that is
right.
Yeah.
Well, he's making it a little easier for Bloomberg right now, for his news operation right now, because he is saying that he failed at the debate or did poorly at the debate. It was like saying the sky is blue. I mean, there was nothing else that you could possibly report. And if his campaign crashes and burns as quickly as some people are now saying, then it's going to, things are going to get easier quickly. On the other hand, the amount of advertising money that he has, the amount of resources he has to keep his name out there, kind of suggests the story will go on. He's looking for a brokered convention. I mean, he's got his eye several months ahead. And yeah, I think when he first got into the race and this announcement came out from Bloomberg, it felt like a restriction as bad as or worse than anything the Trump administration has done. I mean, it was a real outright muzzling.
For me, it's pretty simple. How can you own something that says Bloomberg News and run for president at the same time? There's a baked-in conflict of interest. How can you have them cover you with any hope of credibility? I feel bad for the people who work there, who are in the editorial control aspect, or reporters. I feel bad for them. I mean, at this point, he said a couple of days ago, if I'm elected, I will sell Bloomberg News. Well, you better rebrand it, too, if you're elected. I just don't see, in the meantime, in the next 10 months, how is that credible? 2 days before the last debate, when he did so poorly, there was a headline that said, Democratic race now down to 2 candidates. All right? According to Bloomberg,
right?
According to the Bloomberg campaign. So that's your headline? I mean, that's the kind of thing. And it just reinforces all the stuff that President Trump says about fake news. In a way, it plays right into his hands.
Well, one other thing, too, is the ads coming out of the debate, he's re-edited the ads to make himself look better. Now, that's a story waiting to happen.
He also hired...
He put in the crickets, the long pause. Have any of you started a business? And there's some debate about, okay, is it clear that this is edited?
Well, they said they took pieces from earlier and later. Those were not the exact responses.
Right. The Washington Post gave it 4 Pinocchios, and I think it deserved 4 Pinocchios.
Another interesting thing he's done is he's pulled some of the opinion writers and columnists out of Bloomberg and Bloomberg View and hired them onto his campaign, which, again, your opinion, you're allowed to have an opinion.
Well, that's fine, but can they go back?
Exactly. I mean, and what happens to their career if Bloomberg News sort of moves on, or if they ever want to leave Bloomberg News?
I was just going to say, people have often compared Donald Trump to Silvio Berlusconi of Italy. What's interesting about this is that Berlusconi is the head of a media empire in Italy. So maybe the better comparison is between Mike Bloomberg and Silvio Berlusconi.
Do you guys remember when the Dorchester Reporter had to deal with the fact that Linda Dorsino-Fori, the wife of the owner, was seeking higher office? They hired an ombudsman whose job it was to monitor the coverage and make sure that the paper was doing it right. Bloomberg News could be doing something like that, but I think the problem is Mike Bloomberg has come out and said, I don't want anyone whose salary I'm paying to write bad stuff about me. And when that's the bottom line, you're kind of stuck.
And your name is on them. It's Bloomberg News.
Yep.